Hello, welcome to RC Video Reviews. With all the activity out in the radio marketplace these days, with the launch of the T18, the TX16s Color, the TX18s from Radio King, I figured there's a lot of you out there working on migration activities, and I thought I'd share the list of things that I'm going to work on my radio. One of the biggest questions I get is, can I add a bigger SD card to the radio? And the answer to that is yes. I dug out an 8 gig SD card and I'm going to install that in my radio today. Hey, if you like the work I do here on RC Video Reviews, please consider joining me on Patreon. For about the price of a cup of coffee, you can help me keep making videos just like this one. If you'd like to help out, there's a link in the description and on your screen. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing we'll do is prepare a larger SD card to go on the radio. The second thing we'll take care of is a firmware update. It just so happens they recently released firmware 2.3.10 for this radio, so we'll install that firmware along with the SD card contents. I do want to put a caveat out on firmware updates though. Unless there's something specific you want, you don't necessarily need to do it. I'm doing it because it's a review channel and I need to show people how to do these types of things. But unless you really see something in that upgrade that you have to have, don't feel compelled to do it. There's nothing wrong with 2.3.9. The third thing we need to do is initialize the radio. With all these changes, we're going to put that SD card in and the radio is going to complain. So we have to give the radio an opportunity to get calibrated again. And then finally, we'll finish it off with a little bit of personalization by installing the Amber sound pack. And then we'll put our models from the prior radio on the new radio. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing we need to do is prepare our new SD card. I've already got mine installed and it's drive letter D in my case. So I'm going to right click on that and hit format just so you guys can see how to do it. My formatted capacity will be 7.41 gigs when this is all said and done. I'm going to use the FAT32 file system with 32 kilobytes for the allocation size, and I'm going to give it a label of TX16s Color Edition. And I'll leave quick format enabled and just hit go. We'll let Windows do its thing, and when that's done, we should have a newly formatted USB drive ready to take our files, and I'm still on letter D. Now that our SD card is ready to go, we'll set that aside and we'll open a browser window and install Companion. To download Companion, just do a search for OpenTx download. It'll be the very first link and you'll see OpenTx 2.3.10 right at the top. Click on that and scroll to the bottom of the page. In my case, I'm running Windows, so 2.3.10 for Windows is what I want. If you use Mac or Linux, there's options there for you as well. So click the installer. And while that's downloading, I'm also going to grab the SD card content since I'm already here. I'll click on that link and then I'll navigate to TX16s. And I'll grab the latest version of the SD card contents, which is version 0034. While that's downloading, I'm going to install Companion. Just agree to everything and hit next, next, next. And I'm going to install for all users in my case. And now that the install is complete, I'll hit next again, and now run OpenTx Companion. I've already got my radio profile set up, so I'll run over those settings with you real fast. If you've never set one up before, you just hit Add Radio Profile, but since I've already done it, I'll just show you what mine looks like. I'll select Radiomaster TX16s CE. And then I'll click the settings button and I'll run through the settings with you real quickly. For my radio type, it's Radiomaster TX16s. My menu language is English. I selected the no heli and Lua options because I don't fly helicopters. You don't need this checked if you fly quads. The airplane mode will work just fine. And I do want Lua. I've added a root folder for this radio called Radiomaster TX16s CE on my NAS server, and then underneath that folder I've got a couple of other folders for SD card sync and backup. Under default stick mode, I've got mode 2, which is rudder and throttle on one stick, aileron and elevator on the other, and then for default channel order I use AETR. A lot of people get hung up on this, and the only thing this does is set the default order when you create a new model. It doesn't matter. OpenTx doesn't care what channel you assign to what. It just uses this to figure out, well, if he creates a new model, what do I put in what channel? So that's all it is. It's a default setting. On the application setting tab, under automatic backup folder, I've also got a folder called backup under my Radiomaster TX16s root folder. And then under simulator settings, same deal. I've got a Radiomaster TX16s folder with sim screenshots. And just to give you an idea real quick of what that looks like on the NAS itself, I'll go ahead and bring that up and let you see it. So radios, notice I've got my Jumper T18, my old TX16s, and the new one. So I click on that folder, and here's where I put all that stuff, right in here. Okay, with the radio profile set up, the next thing to do is download the new firmware. Again, I've already done this, so it's not going to tell me there's a new firmware, but I'm going to force the issue. I'll click download, and then if you hit check for updates and you've never downloaded the firmware before, it'll give you a notification. But because I already have, it's going to tell me, hey, you already have it. So no updates available at this time, but that's okay. I'm just going to force it anyway and click download firmware. And then I'm going to put it in my firmware folder under my TX16s color edition folder, and I'll hit save. It's already there, of course, so I'm just going to replace it and hit yes. Okay, now we've got the firmware on the computer. The next thing to do is to go over to the radio and push the T4 and T1 switches in and press the power button. And when the lights come on, you can let it go and you'll see you're in bootloader mode. Once you're in bootloader mode, take the cable that you got with your radio and plug it into the top. Okay, with the radio connected to the computer, I'm going to go ahead and select yes on do you want to write the firmware to the radio from OpenTx Companion. I'll verify the version number is 2.3.10, and I'll leave a check mark in check hardware compatibility. That just makes sure the firmware we're putting on the radio actually supports the hardware that is in the radio. You can see the little progress bar zooming by. That's a good sign. Okay, when it says flashing done, you can go ahead and close these windows out, and we are done for the moment with Companion. All right, the second half of part 2 is to add the SD card contents to the brand new formatted SD card. So now that it's downloaded, I'll open that up and extract it. We'll just leave that on the desktop. And while that's going, I'll get access to the SD card real quick. You can see that's still blank right there. And we're extracting the SD card contents. So we'll let that finish up and then we'll drag that material over to the SD card. While the SD card contents are unpacking, we can go back over to the radio, disconnect it from the computer, and hit exit just to make sure that our firmware install went okay. Always a good sign when you get the splash image. Okay, of course I complain we don't have the right SD card contents. That makes sense. On this window on the right, I've got the newly unpacked SD card contents. I'm just going to highlight all those and drag them to my brand new SD card and let them rip. While the SD card is getting populated with the SD card contents, we'll do a search for the Amber sound pack. And don't worry, I'll put a link in the description so you can find it there as well. The link for the Amber sound pack is right here in the middle. It's hmvc.eu/amber22rar. So this is a RAR file type, and you'll need a RAR extractor to open it up. So just click on that and download it. And we'll let that go while we check on the status of our SD card. Okay, with the Amber sound pack downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and click on that and we'll extract it. I'm using Unrar Metro, which I got on the Microsoft App Store. I think it's free. Now it's important to note, I'm only extracting Amber right now. I'm not going to install it until after I make sure the new SD card works and the radio initializes correctly and all of that. So we'll save the Amber install for a little bit later. I'm just taking advantage of idle time waiting for the computer to finish up with the SD card. Okay, the SD card contents finished copying, so I'm going to go ahead and close that window. And the Amber sound pack finished, and I'll just copy that to my desktop, or I'll move it to my desktop. We'll move it there. And we'll come back to that later. So just set that sounds folder just off to the side right there, and we'll come back to that later. Okay, notice on the new SD card, this is the default SD card contents, and it's missing a couple of folders, most notably models and radio. That's what the radio is going to complain about when we put this card in it. But the radio will set that up, and that's fine. We want to calibrate it anyway, so it's fine to do that. This is ready now to go inside the radio. So I'm just going to close this, pop the SD card out of my computer, and put it in the radio. Now got the new 8 gig card installed in the radio, so I'm going to power it on, and just be aware when you first power it on, it's going to give you the angry red face. So just hold the power button, it'll boot up, we'll get a red icon there, and it's going to complain because there's no radio data folder. So when you see that, you just press return.
Welcome to OpenTx.
And it says storage preparation. Now it wants us to go through a calibration. So I'm going to turn the radio to the side so I can see it. Regarding the calibration, I've done it numerous times on the channel, but I'll do it again real quick so everyone can see it. It says calibration, press enter to start. So I'll press enter, center the sticks, pots, and sliders, and then press enter. So just make sure everything is centered. Pots, sliders, sticks, everything. You can center the 6 position, but it really doesn't need to be. Okay, once you've got everything centered the way it's supposed to be, go ahead and hit the enter button and then move the pots, sticks, and sliders through the range of motion. So the important thing here is just barely go to the stop and then quit pushing. You don't want to ham fist it over on any of these control surfaces. Just hit the stop and then quit. And you can move more than one thing at a time. You can move both the sliders at the same time. You can move both the pots at the same time. That's fine. And then the last thing to do is make sure you go through the 6 position switch by pressing every button on the top. So number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then when you're done, make sure that you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 along the bottom. And I do. So now that that's done, I'll press enter. Okay, the initial calibration is done. I'm going to connect the computer to the radio now by putting the USB-C cable in the top, right up there. We'll select USB storage mode, and now we can finish putting our customizations on the radio. So as you can see, I got a pop-up window with H, we don't care about that, and we got one with E. And also notice that now we have a radio and models directory. So with that done, I'm going to install Amber by clicking on the sound directory. If you need a language other than English, you don't want to do this, but I'm going to blow away all the other languages because I don't need them. I just need the Amber sound pack, and that's it. So yes, delete all of that. Okay, on the radio now, the sounds folder is completely empty, and I have the sounds folder from the Amber sound pack right here on my desktop. I'll open that, and inside there's an EN folder. I'm just going to drag that over to the radio and let it go. Okay, that's the Amber sound pack, and while that was going on, I connected the other TX16s, and I'm going to look at the models directory and drag that over to the TX16s color edition. So I've got this models folder. I'm just going to drag the models folder from my old radio onto the new radio and let it go. And then the last thing I want to do is grab the images. And before I do that, I want to get rid of all the stock images. I don't want those on my radio. I'll get rid of all those. And then I'll go back and just drag my images folder over from my TX16s. Now by doing that, I'll also get the splash screen from my TX16s, the original one, but I also want to change the wallpaper. So the themes folder default has the wallpaper that I want, and it's got this file called background. So on the new radio, I'm going to hit themes, default, and I'm going to drag my background from my old radio onto the new radio. And it's going to say, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to replace this? I say yes. Okay, that about covers the customization. So now I can unplug both radios. The next thing I'll do is set the theme to the red theme, which I like better. So I'll hit the tele button down at the bottom and the page left button, and then I'll scroll up one and I'll highlight the red theme and press the enter button, and it should switch it over for me. There we go. And I'll hit return now and return again to go back to the main screen. Now I'm just going to do a quick little reboot and make sure everything sounds okay.
Welcome to OpenTx. Throttle warning.
Yeah, I'm getting a throttle warning for some reason. I'm going to have to do a recalibration on that real quick. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, it turns out the reason for my throttle warning is that my radio was on mode 1. So I just set it to mode 2 and that took care of that. All right, we are rounding third and heading for home. The next thing I want to show you is how to do a couple of key calibrations. I'm not going to actually go through them in this video because I've got a full-length video explaining in great detail how to do every one of these calibrations. But I'm going to show you where they are and make sure I point them out, and I'll put a link to that video in the description for you as well. So click on the System button and then click Page Left 2 times and go to the bottom where it says Battery Calibration. And the way you want to check this is by putting a voltmeter on your battery and verifying the voltage on your voltmeter against the battery voltage in this battery calibration. If it's off, all you have to do is press on the jog dial and scroll. Right now I'm at 7.89 and that is calibrated for me. I'm going to move it to the right just to show you how it goes back up. See, 7.97. That's not where I want it to be. I just need it to be 7.89 and that's where my calibration needs to be. So make sure you do a battery calibration. Again, links in the description, and there's a little overlay showing you what to look for. The next option you want to check is your battery range. So the battery meter range, notice by default it says 6.7 to 8.3. That's not correct for Li-ion. For me, I like to use 6.4 for lithium ion is the bottom and 8.4 for the top. And then one other option is to go down to your low voltage warning and set it to 6.6, and it's already there. One more key thing since we're in the radio setup is to make sure you set your date and time. Right now I'm set for 2000-01-26, so I just need to update that for today's date. Okay, that's it for calibrations. We're on the last step now, number 7, and that's to show you a couple of personalization items I do on every single OpenTx radio. I'll start by hitting the System button and then hitting Page Left to go to Hardware. And then I'm going to scroll down to S1. And on S1, I always use that for volume. So what I'm going to do is rename that. I'm going to click on S1 and I'm going to go over to the 3-digit field next to it and press Enter. And I'm going to change the label on this to VOL. The reason I labeled that VOL is because the only thing I ever use S1 for is volume. So to use that in practice, hit Escape twice and then go over to your global functions, and for GF1 press Enter on the jog dial, press Enter again on the 3-button switch and go down to on. There it is, on, and then we'll set volume to use S1. It should be called VOL in here now. You see that VOL? And then we'll just highlight this box on the end and hit the check mark. And now we have the ability to have the volume controlled by S1. We'll look at the size of the SD card by long pressing the jog dial and then clicking Model Select. And then you can see right here along the bottom, it says 7.6 gigs. So definitely supports at least up to an 8 gig card and probably supports more than that. In this video, we covered how to upgrade your SD card to a larger size. We covered how to migrate your models over from an old radio to a new one. We talked about how to install the Amber sound pack. We upgraded the firmware to the latest 2.3.10. And then we went through a basic radio setup to verify our hardware calibration, our battery voltages, and our date and time. Well, that's all I've got on how to migrate to a new OpenTx radio. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. For everybody else, leave a comment, a thumbs up, check out the affiliate links, and visit the t-shirt store. That's all I've got for tonight. Take it easy.